Here we are in St Teilo's church, Llantilio, Crossenny, looking at the Vowles organ from 1887. Vowles was a prolific builder in West England and parts of Wales, and he also built the organ in St David's Church, Llantilio, Skirrid, not many miles from here. As you can see, it has got pipes, it's a real pipe organ, and they are highly decorated in a Victorian fashion. And we have also got 3 keyboards, 1 and 2 here for the manuals, the hands, hence manuals, and a keyboard down here for the feet. As it's played by the feet, it's called the pedals. And you will notice that although it's only one colour, we have exactly the same arrangement as keys on the manual keyboard in terms of not black notes, but we have groups of 2s and 3s. On either side of the keyboards we have the stops which pull in and out, hence the expression pulling out all the stops, and it is the stops which control the tone colours of the organ and how loud it is. There are stops on this side as well. These stops here, the top 4 here, they control the top manual, and that is called the Swell manual, and we'll come to why it's called that soon. These 4 stops here, they control the lower manual here, that is the great manual, and again we'll say why it's known as that. And we've got 1 stop here, which is particularly for the pedal keys down here. The musical heart of the organ is the pipes, through which air is blown to produce the sound. It's exactly the same principle as in a recorder. The air is blown in the bottom, and just as in a recorder you have a little bit which sort of interrupts the airflow and produces the sound. It's the same in the pipes. On this organ there's about 460 pipes, and each stop controls a set of pipes or a rank of pipes. So for instance, if we look at this stop here, that is operating the great manual, the lower manual. There are here 54 keys, so there are 54 pipes for that stop. The pipes come in all sorts of lengths. The longer the pipe, the lower the note, and the shorter the pipe, the higher the note. The pipe which is producing this note, one of these over here, is about 8 feet long. This pipe over here is about 4 inches long. As I said, it's the length of the pipe which controls the pitch, and so within each rank of pipes, the bottom note, that C down there, that's about 8 feet long, the pipe that controls that, and that is playing round about the same pitch as a piano. It's concert pitch, give or take a few vibrations a second. All the stops of the organ, the main stops of the organ, are going to play at something like concert pitch, and every stop has a number at the bottom which tells you the length of the longest pipe in the rank. And those which play at concert pitch, approximately, the longest pipe is about 8 feet long. So if you notice, I play here the tenor C, that's about the same as a piano tenor C. Another 8 foot stop. And if we've got all night and all day, I could do the same on this manual. If it says 4 foot on the stop, it plays an octave higher. I'll contrast that for you. An 8 foot stop and a 4 foot stop. If it says 2 foot on a stop, it plays yet another octave higher. So basically the 8 foot stops play at concert pitch, the most important. This stop here, it's got 16 feet on it, that plays an octave lower than concert pitch, and it works on the pedals. So here is tenor C played on an 8 foot stop, played on a 16-foot stop. And you can hear the difference. There are 3 stops here which don't have any 8s, 4s or 2s on them. Swell to pedal, swell to grate, grate to pedal. These are called couplers. It means they connect the manuals and the pedals together. So for instance, if I pull out this stop here, I can play on the lower manual the grate, but nothing happens if I play on the swell. I'm pulling out a stop now on the swell manual. If I play that stop on the swell, it sounds, but if I play the stop on the grate, nothing. If I now pull the swell to grate, that connects the 2 manuals together, and although I have no stop on the grate, you will notice how it plays the swell manual, and you can see the key being depressed there. Similarly with swell to pedal and grate to pedal. If I play this note on the pedals, I haven't got any stop drawn, nothing happens. I now pull out a stop on the swell, still nothing on the pedals, pull swell to pedals, and now that stop from the swell manual plays on the pedals, and it's the same principle with grate to pedal. This means I can select stops for the swell manual, for the grate manual, and for the pedal keyboard, and with the use of the couplers they all play together for maximum power of the organ. Apart from being different lengths, the pipes are made of different materials. They can be made of metal, like these pipes here, or of wood, pipes in the centre of the organ, and if Kingsley goes round the back he can show you some of the wooden pedal pipes. Generally speaking, metal pipes produce a brighter sound and there's a softer tone with wooden pipes. So for instance, this stop here, open diapason, produces this note. That's a metal pipe playing a fairly strident tone. On the Borden here, this is a wooden pipe and you can hear it's a more gentle tone. Apart from the length of pipes and the material they are made of, the sound is affected by the width of a pipe. Thinner pipes tend to be a brighter sound, and fatter pipes tend to be a more gentle sound. Apart from varying the width of pipes and varying the material they're made of, you can also stick a stopper in the top of the pipe, and that makes the sound even more gentle. So for instance, this pipe over here is called a lieblich gedacht, which means a lovely closed, and the particular technical feature of it is there is a wooden stopper, which means the sound has to go up to the top and come back down again. So although it says 8 foot there, the longest pipe is in fact only 4 foot, because the sound has gone up to the top, met the stopper and come back again, so it has an 8 foot journey. So the volume of the pipes and the tone quality of the pipes is determined by the material they're made of, and also the thinness or the thickness of the pipe, and such things as whether there's a stopper in the top, whether there isn't. Unstoppered pipes tend to sound more freely and more brilliantly. Down here, above the pedal board, we have 5 other pedals of a different shape. These 4 are called combination pedals, and I'll be describing these in a few moments. And this here is called a swell pedal. You notice you've got the word swell pedal, and here we have swell manual, and we'll be looking at the connection between those very shortly. The combination pedals, as I said, are used to change stops, particularly useful if your hands are completely employed doing something else. So here I am at the moment my hands are well away from any part of the organ, but by pressing on the combination pedals, you can see that stops are being changed. Earlier, I talked about the Swell manual and the fact that these 4 stops here on my left operate the Swell manual. I also spoke just recently about the Swell pedal. Now, the 4 stops which operate the Swell manual are enclosed in a box, and because they're enclosed, they sound rather quiet. If the Swell pedal is operated, there are louvers on the side of this box which open up and let more sound out. It gives an effect something like a crescendo. Here is a chord where I am not using the Swell pedal and the louvers at the front of the box are closed. I might as well get a stop on, it does help the process. I am now using the Swell pedal to open the louvers. Closing them. Obviously, it's not a massive crescendo like you might get from an orchestra, and on an organ, if you want a big crescendo from very quiet to very loud, you will do this by changing stops. But Swell pedals, which have been in existence since 1712, do give some subtlety and some flexibility. As I said, the stops which run at 8-foot pitch, these play approximately at concert pitch, and they are the basic fundamentals of the organ if you're going to play hymns or accompany congregations. If you had an organ with just one stop, one manual, and one stop and nothing else, it would be an open diapason. That's a rank of pipes made of metal, so they are fairly strong, open so that the sound isn't in any way muffled, and quite clear speaking out into the church. And it plays, as I say, like at a concert pitch. And the Dulciana, again, is a quieter, it's a smaller pipe, a narrower pipe, but being 8-foot, it plays at concert pitch. As I mentioned before, the 2-foot pipes and the 4-foot pipes play at higher pitches. These, apart from special effects in some sorts of organ pieces and in recitals, are never used on their own. I'm going to demonstrate the 2-foot bit. It's very hot in the church at the moment, and the tuning of this has been affected by the heat. You can hear it's very high pitched. Apart from special effects, you do not use 4-foot stops or 2-foot stops on their own, but they are used for adding brightness, brilliance, and a sort of crescendo. Because this organ has only one stop, a Borden, it's got to function as the base for quiet stop combinations or loud stop combinations. So it's a general purpose stop, perhaps too loud for some quiet combinations and not very strong for strong combinations, for loud combinations. And this is where the coupler great to pedals comes in. I'm going to play a passage, a few notes, just with a bourdon. An indistinct sort of sound. I'm pulling out the open diapason on the grate, and I'm going to now couple that with the great to pedals. You'll notice it's a much more immediate effect and forms a much better bass line. So generally speaking, on this sort of organ with just one pedal stop, always couple one of the manuals to it to give some definition to the bass. On the Swell manual we have 3 stops of 8-foot pitch, and like so many organ stops here in Britain and around the world, it has rather unusual or fanciful names, but they tell an organist something about the sort of sound they're going to get, apart from the pitch. For instance, gamba. Gamba is an Italian word meaning leg, but also, as in the viola da gamba, it's a string instrument, and the pipes on the gamba are rather narrow compared to the length, so they give a slightly more stringy sound. Slightly is the main thing, the word, but it's a slightly keener sound to it. The lieblich gedacht, which translates as lovely closed, well, lovely is understandable. Remember, I mentioned some pipes have got wooden stoppers in the top, and this is such a pipe. Gedacht means closed, and this gives a softer effect. Horn diapason, the main word there is diapason, which, as over here on the grate you've got the open diapason, means fully sounding, and it's a fairly effective stop. And in fact it's the loudest stop on the Swell manual of this organ. So by the names, fanciful though they are, an organist knows not only what pitch they're going to get, 8 foot, but also something about the sort of sound which is going to be produced. As organs, even particularly before we had industrialisation, are very personal instruments, a lot to do with handcraft and makers. These names only give a general indication, and you cannot tell exactly how they're going to sound until you have tried it. Here with the 4 stops for the great manual, we have another diapason. It tells you it's open, so it's going to be quite an effective and strong sound. And as I said, if you had an organ of just one manual and just one stop, that's the stop you would have. At the same pitch, at 8 foot, you've got a dulciana, and that has the same root as dolce, meaning sweet, and it's generally a more gentle sound. The 4-foot flute, well, we all know what flutes are like. And those of you who are acquainted with orchestral playing know that piccolos sound higher than the flute. And although they don't sound exactly like their orchestral equivalents by name, as I just mentioned, it gives some indication to an organist what sort of sound to expect. So for instance, if an organist was going to play a loud hymn, they wouldn't start with the dulciana just drawn, because they know they need the firm fundament of an open diapason. We have on this organ 2 other strangely named stops. Here on the Swell manual is Gemshorn, 4 foot, so it's playing an octave above concert pitch. It will add some sort of brilliance or brighter tone to a stop combination. Gemshorn actually means a goat's horn. And you have to think that sort of at one time people had goat's horn and blew through them and could produce notes. It sounds nothing like what a gemshorn, a real gemshorn from a live goat would sound like, but we know as organists that we're going to get a thinnish sort of tone. Over here on the pedals, and I demonstrated it earlier, we have the Borden. Borden comes from an old Anglo-French word meaning song, and it has no connection to that at all, but organists know that Borden is going to sound an octave lower than concert pitch because of the 16. We also know there will be wooden pipes, wide wooden pipes with a stopper in the top so that it sounds lower than you would expect from the pipe length. Round the back here we have the pipes of the Borden, which is the stop which works on the pedal. Not all the pipes, because there are 30 pipes for that stop, but we've got most of them here. As you can see, they are made of wood. The fact they're square rather than round makes no difference, but the Borden, as I said, is a stop pipe, which means it's got stoppers at the top. And can you catch, Kingsley, any of the stoppers, such as just there? Okay, and so though this pipe here is 8 feet long, the sound goes up and comes down again, so it gives the effect of a pipe which is 16 foot long, but because it stops at the top, because it's made of wood, and because it's fairly wide compared to its overall length, that gives it a softer, more gentle tone.